All right, welcome everybody. We'll get started in a couple minutes here. Let people get out of their last call and on to this one. Looks like we got a lot of folks piling in. It's great to see. Guess for the early folks that haven't already joined, maybe we'd love to hear where you're dialing in from around the world. Last week we had people from all over the globe signing in at all hours, so that was really cool to see. I want to see if we have a geographically diverse group today. San Francisco, London, there we go. London, UK. Colorado, DC, New York City, all right. Denver, another one, Denver. Chicago, all over the US. Cleveland, here we go, some Ohio. SoCal, man, we've hit a lot of states so far, a lot of cities. Good to see. All right, what are we at from attendance? Looks like got a good group so far. Give it one more minute, maybe 30 more seconds, and then we'll go ahead and get started. And, I'll remind you guys, as far as the audience goes, is ask questions throughout the program here today. We want to make it conversational. We want to answer your questions throughout. And of course, we'll have time at the end to answer some questions that come through too. So feel free to just drop those into the Q&A box throughout the presentation here. All right, looks like we got pretty good group here. We're going to go ahead and launch into it since we have a lot to cover. So welcome everybody. My name is Yuji Higashi. I lead the solutions consulting team at Outreach, and I'm also the co-founder of the Presales Collective. For those of you who are new to the Presales Collective, I'll give a quick overview of what it is. Our mission is to bring pre-sales folks together from around the globe to learn, to network, to develop professionally. This community is meant for anybody who's in a pre-sales role already, or anybody that wants to get into a pre-sales role. Like many folks in pre-sales, I landed in pre-sales accidentally. It was something that I wasn't planning on for my career, but now that I'm in the role, I really enjoy it, and it's something that I plan to do for the rest of my career. And I'm really excited about what we're doing at Presales Collective to help elevate this function and highlight some of the really cool things that pre-sales folks are doing. And we're also aiming to provide resources, network, mentorship that are all critical in anybody driving a successful career. So, something that pre-sales folks have lacked for a long time. And so we're really happy to be able to start to provide that to pre-sales folks specifically. So now, before we get into the topic and introduce our guests, let's see who we have on the audience today. I'm going to launch a quick poll, as we normally do, just to see who you are. So what best describes your current role? Are you an individual SC? Are you a pre-sales leader? Are you one of our sales counterparts? We have sales folks join these webinars as well. And maybe you're looking to become an SC or join the pre-sales function. While we let that poll run, I'll quickly cover off what you can expect to get out of the session today. So we have an excellent presentation for you all today. We're going to cover really three things. The first is understanding of where to drive outcomes across the organization. And guess what? It's not just sales. Then there's the three pillars of outstanding SCs. These are the areas to develop as an individual SC. This is where you separate from good to great. And then lastly, develop brand and value through relationships with key stakeholders. This is a huge part of being a successful SC, and our guests will explain the how to go about it. So let's just take a quick look at our poll now. It looks like we got a lot of individual contributors, but also a lot of leaders on the phone, which is good to see. And then a good amount of other. I always like seeing the other because it means we're getting other folks interested in the pre-sales function, and we're always open to everyone being included in these. So good to see. All right, I'll wrap the poll there. And then with that, let's go ahead and introduce our guests. We have Stephen Morris and Justin McManus with us today, both good friends of mine. Stephen, why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Sure. And everyone can hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so delighted to be here. Love the idea of the Presales Collective. So hats off to the founders, James and Yuji. I currently am running worldwide field engineering at Algolia. It's a fast-growing search SaaS startup. I'm also the founder of the SE Leadership Institute, which has been around for 2 years and got its start around really helping to be spreading the brand and elevating the game of SE leadership worldwide. And it's since sort of expanded to all sales engineering. And so excited to be here. I also do, as we'll talk about today, I believe in an integrated approach to sales engineering and life in general. So I'm also a certified teacher in a neuroscience-backed mindfulness and emotional intelligence course called Search Inside Yourself. In my career, I've had the privilege of working in pre-sales leadership for over 20 years for great companies like Salesforce, Mixpanel, Box, mParticle, and the like. So great to be here.
Thanks, Stephen. And for those of you who don't know Stephen, I've known Stephen for a while now, and he's a huge advocate for pre-sales and a big contributor to the community at large. So really, really great to have you on, Stephen. Justin, how about you?
Hey everyone, this is Justin. I am currently the head of solutions at Siebel, so I really support Stephen in curating and creating and delivering a lot of the workshops that we do as part of the Siebel practice. And been in the SE game for a while. I helped start the Bay Area meetup group about 7 or 8 years ago, and I currently reside at mParticle, where I oversee the solutions engineering function. Great to be here all, and looking forward to today's webinar.
All right, thanks, Justin. And I've been able to connect with Justin in the SC community. He's a tremendous leader and a big contributor to the community. Like you mentioned, he started the San Francisco Bay Area meetup. Glad to have you with us today, Justin. All right, before I hand it off to Justin and Stephen to take the presentation, reminder just to drop any questions you have throughout into the Q&A box. We'll make sure that we either get those addressed during the presentation itself or for the time that we have reserved for Q&A at the end. And with that, Justin and Stephen, you have the mic.
Thank you, Yuji. And Yuji, by the way, is also a Siebel graduate of our Black Belt program, which is a 3-day leadership intensive, and has been a stellar alum and broadening his breadth and depth in all ways. So hats off to you, Yuji. So just very briefly, by means of introduction, the SC Leadership Institute is part of the SASE Sales Management group family of SaaS leadership workshops. We have a V2 Mom, for those of you who are not as familiar with that. It's a way for us to crystallize our vision and to understand what values drive us and how we get to where we need to. Our vision from the start's been the same, and it's really about amplifying what best practices happen in sales engineering, to look at the first principles of what great pre-sales is, and then to build stuff to equip them, to equip you and to anyone who's embracing the sales engineering or management function to be the top performers in the industry. Our values really are about world-class, so these are practices that work across the world from the best companies. Integrated in the sense that we want to recognize the whole person, not only just doing your day-to-day job and your best practices, but the resilience and the well-being that come with working on your inner world as well. And then global, and that we want really to be a message for pre-sales across the world. For today, we're going to do a quick primer. This is a quick 45-minute review of holistic practices and elite practices of sales engineers and leaders for that matter. But one of our methods at Siebel is really to empower an elite and holistic sales engineering community. And I wanted to take a minute just to describe holistic, as we define it, is characterized with the idea that if you work on all parts, all facets of yourself and in your relationships to others and in your organization, it'll be much more than the sum of any given part. And similarly, many of you guys know what elite is. It's really a group that's superior in their execution. And we want to look at it in a number of ways. We want to look at it not only from leadership, as an IC or a manager, how do you cultivate good leadership? We want you to perform in your job, have top performance, whether it's KPI or outcome related. And we also want you to have well-being, because these are tough times. There's a lot to push through. There are a lot of struggles that we're all facing, whether we're out of work or in work. And building resilience, having a sense of well-being is really, really critical in these times. So let us dive in. Here is the overview of the holistic approach. So we're going to cover 3 dimensions today. A lot of this comes from the workshops that we do. We'll be able to touch on some of it, but not all of it. But we wanted to give you great pieces of each one of these dimensions of great sales engineering. The first one is organizational. So we're going to talk a little bit about sales engineering as a whole, what outcomes you can produce across the company and across the business. We're going to talk about individual, the pillars of great sales engineering. This is both your soft skills, your hard skills, and as well as your internal landscape, emotional intelligence, mindset, and resilience. And then finally, the third facet is going to be interpersonal. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of your most important internal interpersonal relationships working with SE management and with sales. So let us dive right in with the first dimension of organization. And so in pre-sales, it's useful to think of yourself sitting in the center of the company hub, right? There is probably no more well-integrated and cross-functional role than a sales engineer has within an organization. What's interesting is that we oftentimes don't take as much time to define our relationship to all of these orgs. Now, some are obvious and deep, but some are quite adjacent, but very, very important. And what's really interesting is the organization that you belong to is unique in terms of the depth and breadth that you may represent against these connections, right? And it will change as you grow and evolve. Startups, you touch everybody, you know, as you get bigger, you tend to be very laser focused. So kind of by means of chat, what are the primary orgs that you may support today? Go ahead and chat those in. I don't see the chat bar, but I'm assuming that sales is going to crop up definitively. We may see some success. Some organizations will report through the success organization. So let's talk about what outcomes we're talking about, right? With sales and success, we're really talking about KPI-driven performance. We tend to be the right hand of the sales organization, driving revenue, particular KPIs, everything from velocity to win rate to dollars. It tends to be very strategic as well as tactical. And many of you may be part of growth teams that work very closely on expansions and renewals. We're really looking for a lifetime value, growth, churn statistics, net expansion statistics. These tend to be very mature, KPI-driven, well-defined, and incented organizations that we work with. However, I challenge you that what about product? Right? Oftentimes we know we're involved in products. We certainly listen to the customer, but this is a really, really important secondary and sometimes primary outcome to being in a sales engineering organization. So what I would invite you to think of your relationship with product and the outcomes that you're driving to be a very, very critical part of what you do. You represent the voice of customer feedback. You also represent the monetized voice of customer feedback that really provides a balanced viewpoint into nice to haves, into real roadmap, as well as trends of where your solution or product is going. And it also helps you to think about where you want to be moving, whether you're moving up enterprise and you need to think about security and infrastructure, 10xing your scalability or other types of capacities. This is a vital function that pre-sales engineers provide in the context of the product. How about marketing? By show of chat, what kind of outcomes or things do you do with marketing? Hopefully some good stuff's coming through, UG.
Yeah, we got competitive analysis, analyst relations, blogs, webinars.
Perfect.
RFPs, a lot of good stuff on with the competitive
Excellent.
intel.
Yep, you're on it. So while we tend to be project or outcome driven there, we want to drive pipeline, we want to start covering Gartner or Forrester, we want to be, you know, evangelizing or otherwise presenting some thought leader. We are really, and oftentimes, a very important part of the marketing function, right? Around events and evangelism, demand generation, content. And so as a pre-sales engineer, being aware of the fact that you're driving these outcomes in the marketing organization is really, really important. And oftentimes we neglect to identify and think about that. And frequently we're just sort of there at events helping where we can. But a holistic engineer is going to be thinking about, how do I actually create these outcomes across the organization? We'll do two more just to sort of think about, what about outcomes with enablement or outcomes with operations, sales operations, or even financial operations? What kind of things do we provide, or what's the major metric there that we're driving when we're working with those organizations? And go ahead and throw them in the chat bar.
Let's see. Michael called out ops and enablements and creating demo walkthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Jacob. Nick's saying decreasing sales ramp time.
Exactly. Excellent.
And Lisa's saying identifying knowledge gaps in the sales team, similar to
Yeah,
the
perfect. Yep, you guys are on it. What we're really talking about here is productivity, right? So sales engineering can be a massive lever of productivity within the organization, whether it's ramping, onboarding, knowledge gap, competitive, all sorts of capabilities to improve and ready the revenue teams, all the way to operations and finance, where we really look at the hard metrics and the soft metrics to optimize our evaluations, to drive to better win rates, to understand segmentation and where we want to go as an organization. So I guess the point here is, oftentimes in pre-sales, we tend to think, hey, we help with a technical win and we do some revenue and we help our friends around the organization. But to understand the breadth and depth that you currently do and what you can do across the organization, these are the trade-offs that you're going to make day to day, the decision-making process that help govern what you do. But more importantly, a holistic sales engineer is going to understand where they sit and what kind of outcomes that they can drive and how you're maximizing your impact. And the reason why this is so important, recognizing what you do, let's talk about articulating it, right? So just let's suppose you're stuck in your elevator with your CEO. For those of you not in the Pacific Northwest, whose CEO is in this elevator as a guest? Did anyone pick it up in chat?
Brian got it. Ballmer.
All right. So this is Steve Ballmer, Microsoft ex-CEO. So let's just suppose you're stuck in the elevator with Steve, right? Or frankly, any executive. And he turns to you and he goes, oh, what group are you with? And you say, hey, I'm a pre-sales director. And they're like, oh, wow, I heard you're great. Yeah, sales engineering is great. Keep up the good work. But what did you do again? Tell me, what exactly do you do? And so my challenge to you, and you can throw your elevator pitch in chat. I saw Noam from Chorus already run a little session on this in the Pre-Sales Collective on the backs of this. What's your elevator pitch to your CEO? What do you do? In a few words or less. You've got 14 floors to go up. What is your elevator pitch? Do we get a couple of examples?
Let's see them flown in. Trusted advisor for our customers. That's what Dino's pitch is. Mike saying, I help our IT customers understand TOC, total cost of ownership, for partnering with us now and in the long term. Harry's saying, we help our customers be successful. Simple enough.
Yep.
And Chris is saying, I ensure the technical win.
Awesome. All right, good examples. And so in almost all the orgs that I've worked with, and I've worked with a lot of big companies and small companies, SEs in general have a hard time to be crisp on the definition of their role and outcomes. And think about this, if you can't define it, how will other people outside of your organization understand it, right? I've heard many frustrating comments when people come into the classes and they say, gosh, the sales team just looks at us like demo dollies, or ops says, why do we even need SEs? They're not quota carrying, or vague definitions of what SEs do, right? So we really need to own it. And a holistic SE's got to know not only the most common and key elevator pitch, but what outcomes we drive across the company. So this is something that I built initially at Salesforce, and we really use it more and more. It's a definition, and it may not fit in in an elevator. So I may not pass the litmus test of an elevator, but I invite you to take a look at it. Please feel free to use it, sculpt it, change it to what you need at your organization and your time and place. But here's a great world-class SaaS-focused definition of pre-sales around driving discovery, leading to product technical selection, trusted advisory, blending a number of different skills. And what do we engender? Not just customer success, but we're driving product, we're driving company success, and we're building our brand at the same time. We want to stay inwardly focused around great sales engineering.
I think that's a really good point, Stephen. Just to add to that, I think it's easy to go with the short response of we're the technical experts, or we do the demos, and I think that it's important to always talk about all of the things we do, because we do make a really big, as SCs and pre-sales folks, we make a big impact on the organization, not just from a revenue perspective, but also, like you said, driving into product and everything like that. So I think that's a really good point. And I think we should all kind of carry ourselves in that way. So we don't pigeonhole ourselves into that one specific thing that people can think we do. So good stuff.
Homework
Stephen.
number one, articulate your organizational impact and your focus.
Yes.
All right, let's hand it over to Justin for the next section.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. Okay. So now we're about to enter the second dimension of focus for a holistic SE practice, which are your individual skills and capabilities. There are many powers of three to describe the pillars of outstanding sales engineering development, and we will use the following three as best practice. So the first one being subject matter expertise, the next being salesmanship, and the last one being customer centricity. And really for today, we're going to cover just one of them in this webinar, which is the subject matter expertise pillar. So let's talk about the what. As an SE or as a subject matter expert, really here, the bar or the measure you should set for yourself is you should be able to engage in a conversation with a prospect or a champion and really be able to talk with them at length about the market they're in, the vertical that they're in, the organizational changes that are happening out in market, the common challenges that persist in their role, and also the landscape of vendors that they partner with or ones that they're currently evaluating to solve a certain set of challenges that they see on a day-to-day basis. And you should be able to have an entire hour-long conversation with them without ever bringing up your product or service once. And really a true dialogue here between an SE and that individual is one where your opinion is being shared, you're sharing perspectives, trends, lessons learned, and also really just being able to measure and challenge yourself to be able to do so, again, without ever referencing your product or service that you work for. And really, the goal here with being a SME, when you achieve this level, it really allows for non-intrusive, high quality and curiosity driven discovery, right? You really have to earn the right to ask some of those questions, and demonstrating yourself as a subject matter expert really opens up the door for you to be able to do so. So how do you essentially start to get here? Well, you need to build mastery of a lot of different things, technology and the products and the solutions, but also, what you sell as a vendor, but also what your competitors are doing out in the market. You have to also have an opinion on this too. What's working and what's not working in the industry. The market dynamics are huge. So understanding the market landscape for your solution, what the vendors are doing, what customers are suddenly caring about this year versus last year, and also just the broader economic forces that are shaping that. When you examine the industry, being able to master and articulate and use the vernacular of what's used by the language of your champions, your prospects, the individuals that you engage with. You have to be able to understand their own customer profiles, their business, the role, the general pains that they're facing, as well as the opportunities that they see available. You also have to really master your own customer stories and be able to articulate those at length. Being able to have a great framework for telling a story, and also the use cases that have you've supported and you've enabled as part of that ongoing solution, and also really the results here, and not just like case study level results, but how your solution or how your product ultimately changed the day-to-day life of your end users and of your champions. Were you able to get anybody promoted? Could you tell a story behind that too? Those are great stories that prospects want to hear about how you ultimately changed their life and helped elevate their own career. So when we think about some wisdom here, some best practices to help you go along the way, there's always a mantra that is my favorite, which is to become a student of your space. This really invites that openness, it drives that curiosity, that problem solving, and overall achievement to be recognized as that thought leader inside of the space. So a pro tip here is to really, spend an hour a day, maybe it's 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes as you're shutting down, and just curating and learning all the different articles that you're collecting from the blogs you're following, the Twitter feed, really anywhere, Hacker News, Reddit, wherever you get your sources of information, make sure that you're compiling them and putting them into some sort of a shared spreadsheet that you can share across your SE team, across your sales team, your professional services, really anybody that's interested in learning and gathering some market research. And you should go also one step further in that spreadsheet. Write down your opinion. start to craft your thought so you can go back and refer to it, and also have other individuals on your team go and see your honest reflections and thoughts from those articles too. You'll also hear me, if you know me, talk a lot about publishing or perishing. If you're doing all this incredible work out in market, but you're not bringing the use cases or the value propositions or the aha moments back to your team and your organization, a lot of that can get lost in conversation, especially if you're at a bigger size company. So making sure that you're always publishing and broadcasting and sharing all the great work that you're doing behind the scenes within your ST org, within your entire sales org, and really everyone across the company to get the eyes and ears on the work that you're doing. And that doesn't just stop internally at your company. Start to think about, writing up blog posts, getting on podcasts, getting on some YouTube videos, and just sharing your perspectives and your opinions out in market to continuously build out your own brand as a subject matter expert. And then lastly, I'll kind of end this slide on one famous quote here. I think everyone's heard of this before, but you really do go to bed smart and you also wake up dumb. That's because the technology and the industries that we all work in are really moving that fast. So always become a student of your space, always continue developing and working on that to really become that subject matter expert in your field.
That's a really, really good point, Justin. I think that, what we're seeing is that as SaaS evolves, as technology evolves, everything is so interconnected. There are no one solution fits all problems type of software anymore. And so you have to kind of know all the different integration partners you have in your space, everything that your solution ties to. And so I think that's a really good point, to be a student of your overall space and not just your own solution.
I think there's a great comment here with the fact that people are attending this. Be a student of sales engineering as well. Resources like the pre-sales collectives that have titans and emerging leaders and everybody collecting their knowledge and educating each other. There's all the services that are available now that seem to be, we're in the renaissance of awesome pre-sales resources. This is an amazing time to be part of this movement. Now it's time to dig deep with it.
And each of the three pillars can really be organized into two sub-buckets of skills. There are the hard skills, which are teachable, they're measurable, and there are the soft skills, which some are teachable, but oftentimes these are competencies that require lots of continuous effort and education and fine-tuning and honing to really up-level these types of skill sets. And really a combination of these are going to allow you to execute more efficiently in any situation that you come across. Most times SEs are often hyper-focused on the hard skills, like re-upping your coding or technology skills. But, honestly, if you take a pause and think, when was the last time you considered enrolling yourself in a writing class, in public speaking, or even in a negotiation class? Yes, I said negotiations, and some of you might think that's what salespeople are for. But think about in your day-to-day, you're actually negotiating very, very frequently. It just might not be on customer terms or payment terms, but you're constantly negotiating with your sales rep. You're constantly negotiating with product and engineering to get as much information as you can to better serve your customers. And learning how to negotiate, learning how to speak more eloquently across the different pillars of the organization are going to help you continuously evolve and up-level your SC skills. But again, really the key is to work on both, but also just really take away from this the importance of those soft skills and don't neglect them as you continue and evolve in your SE practice. So just as we develop the hard and the soft skills related to individual competencies, it's also really important to look at your own internal landscape and the things that you need to do to sustain top performance and to drive through some of those difficult situations with resilience. We cover a lot of this in our workshops, but wanted to offer this one very critical piece of building for your own internal landscape with the strength that you need to sustain in order to maintain a holistic and elite practice. And that is really the mindset. So at its essence, and this is really built on a lot of research and publication, there are two fundamental mindsets that really exist today. At its most essential, the fixed mindset is someone that really desires to be perceived as talented and as perfect and believes that really this was gifted to them naturally. But someone with a growth mindset, really believes that there's an ability to learn from any situation, from any environment, and from anybody. And this usually takes development. It doesn't necessarily come natural, but you have to really kind of forcefully improve yourself to continuously be hungry to learn. And really the end goal here is somebody with a growth mindset looks at every single challenge and sees an opportunity to really learn and to grow from that. So this really, again, can manifest in a series of outlines, or excuse me, of behaviors that have been outlined, and looking at those different challenges and setbacks. So let's put the pre-sales context or the pre-sales lens into this. The fixed mindset is somebody that really blames poor performance on certain circumstances or situations that may or may not have been out of their control. They're finding a scapegoat. They don't tend to take responsibility or really, do kind of the standard solutioning. They don't apply any sort of innovation on top of their demos or use case creations or modifications. They typically sit and wait to be told what to do, and it might refer back to the manual on what best practices and things are that they should do, really thinking inside of the box, right? And then of course, as an SE, you're always getting feedback. You're getting feedback from tons of different players in the organization. And an SE who takes that feedback personally is somebody who is ultimately rejecting any sort of opportunity to grow from that feedback coming from those different players in the organization. And what we want to do is we want to take a growth mindset, right? This is somebody who takes responsibility for their own performance, has a very clear plan and set of objectives. Maybe they've set up a V2 mom for themselves to really help ongoing and drive that execution. They're creative in finding new solutions. They start to think outside of the box. They're empathetic to everyone within the team and outside of the organization. And they really take any sort of opportunity or even a failure, when those do exist, as a reason or as a glimpse into an opportunity to grow. So really here, these are some examples of a fixed and a growth mindset. There's a really great book out there by Carol Dweck. It's called Mindset. It's a really fast and exceptional read, and definitely recommended from the Presales Collective as well as Sealy.
Thank you, Justin. And the mindset's a really important thing to understand about yourself and to cultivate. Failures, problems, issues are going to confront us all one day, and really understanding your inclination and then building habits to help you recognize that failure is common and setbacks are common. It's how we approach things and our mindset which differentiates those that are successful from those that are not. It is not the knowledge, it is the mindset. And the stories of all of the best people in every realm of athletics, politics, technology, business, suffered massive setbacks, right? But it's the mindset that allows you to persevere through obstacles in your way.
Yeah, I'm really glad you guys brought this up. I think this is probably the most critical thing that I look for in candidates that I interview for my team in SCs is, do they have a growth mindset? They may not have all the technical skills, they may not have the experience, right? But if they have the growth mindset, I'm confident they'll be able to get there. So it's hugely important. Thanks for covering it, guys.
Thanks, Yuji. Yeah, and this translates into, this is that one bit we'll talk about the internal landscape. These are things that are good for life, not just work. Okay, so we're gonna, again, in our short window of time together, we're gonna move into that third dimension of being a holistic sales engineer. And that's really kind of having a view into how do we manage our interpersonal relationships. In this case, we're gonna focus on two of the most important relationships with your stakeholders, specifically your pre-sales managers, your SE management, who are there to support you and help you evolve and grow, and with the sales organization. So we've had the privilege of working with hundreds of SE managers across the industries, from Google Cloud and Salesforce down to Chorus and Outreach and SalesLoft and all sorts of great companies. And I polled our alum and I asked them, I said, hey, what's the best advice you can offer your sales engineers, right? You got to remember, your sales engineering manager is your advocate. They're your coach. They're there to help you. And so being able to create a good relationship will help forward a lot of acceleration for you and growth for you. So actually, I was going to parse this out and have Justin, then Yuji, then myself speak to a couple of these. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of SE leaders on this call who are also alumni who helped contribute to that. So thank you. And we're going to ask you in just a minute what any additional advice is. But Justin, what sticks out to you in this sort of collected advice from SE managers to SEs?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my favorite one here is the first one. Keep it healthy and honest. And to echo some of your thoughts there, Stephen, SE managers are really here to help SEs improve, to coach, to advocate, to be a path of escalation, and to help just kind of manage and nurture and grow the relationship, and help kind of manage some of those tough challenges that we find ourselves in pretty frequently. There's a game that I like to play behind this, and it's called the hat game. I love it when my SEs play this game, and I also play this game pretty frequently with my bosses. And it's ultimately just about taking on or off different hats that you're wearing to represent different emotions. So if you need a few minutes to really vent and get some things off your chest, I'm going to put on the emotional hat, and I'm just going to say a bunch of things to get everything off my chest so I feel better. And then when I'm done, I'm going to take the emotional hat off and put my solutioning hat back on. And then I'm going to get proactive, and I'm going to start thinking about solving problems, and I'm going to just get productive with the situation. And it's super helpful as an SE leader, because you then have some boundaries to better understand, if this is a situation that you need to escalate and really do something about, or if your SE, just needs a few minutes to get some things off the chest and to kind of emotionally rant a little bit. It helps just create some really good boundaries to set the next course of action, and to really determine how severe a situation is, or if it's just, getting some things off the chest. But yeah, that would be my favorite one, Stephen.
Thank you, Justin. Yuji, I know you got one up there. What resonates with you?
I do. And I do like what Justin suggested, the hats. I actually took a note of that. So I love that, Justin. Yeah, so I think mine that I put up here actually was attitude is everything. Keep it positive. And the way I look at this is that positivity and attitude creates a really strong flywheel of positive and constructive energy on a team. And that is super important, especially if you're in a high growth environment or any sales environment, right, where you're working cross-functionally and supporting customers and prospects. So attitude is huge for me. And it can also work in that flywheel, right? It can also work in the inverse if you have negativity on the team. And that's something I look to avoid at all costs on my teams and just people that I work with in general. So attitude is huge for me.
So there's that positive mindset, that growth mindset at work, Yuji. For me, and again, all of these are great. There's two that I would kind of raise. I love the bring your solution. It's tough out there. You got to bring, it's emotional. There's all kinds of stuff happening. We're here to help vent, but also bring solutions. I like the be a pro with systems, right? My call and one of my calling cards is let's make sure we use the best operating principles we can. Let's get better all the time. Our systems perfect? No. But if we don't use them, we really can't figure out how best to evolve them, leverage them, or complain about them and then fix them. So be a pro. Come into work and do the best work of your career and be a pro with those. They're oftentimes there to help sustain execution all the way up the food chain to the board members and CEO, C-levels. So don't be, let's step into those, let's drive those. And with that, we'll better know ourselves and how we execute. And then I'm also gonna, one that just made the list from a recent engagement that we had. It's really called paying it forward, which is as you evolve in your seniority as an IC, many of you are future SE leaders, if that inclination so behooves you. And that's really pay forward what you've learned. If you see great behavior, if you see, ways that we've worked on deals or ways that we've managed well or anything around product or leadership, we want to make sure that we share it and we up-level everybody collectively, right? With this idea of we're all here to get better, leaders and ICs alike. That's what I love about sales engineering is there's very little, hierarchy. We're all here to better ourselves, and we want to reap the rewards individually and collectively of doing it right. And kind of related to that is all of these, owning your one-on-ones, owning your career paths, right? As SE managers, we're there to help unleash and unlock you. Sometimes it's unclear what you want to do, but work in a proactive way to help define that. Let your manager help unleash and work with you on that. So those are some of those key pieces of advice from the field, from the best in class SE leadership. I guess I would ask I think we're like at, good almost 20% of pre-sales leaders or SEs on the call, or frankly, anybody would love to pick up a couple of chat, pieces of advice that you would like to give to your SEs to your manager. Please feel free to chat some collective wisdom here. How have you found it to be productive in building this relationship?
Yeah, and Hannah actually provided some advice earlier on based on the previous topic, but advice that she had received early on in her career was to never solution on a discovery call. Just have a conversation and it'll keep it focused on the customer versus being feature or function focused. So I think that's really strong advice, especially early on in discovery.
Great sales cycle advice.
What else do we got? Jacob's saying, be a generalist when you need to be, but also make sure to be a specialist because your sales team will expect that.
Mm-hmm. Good one.
Let's see what else. Justin saying encourage. Oh, you're in there, Justin, saying encourage occasional one-on-one when there's no work talk in the agenda. I like that. I like that as well. All right, and just a reminder, guys, if you have questions, about this topic, about anything in general for Stephen or Justin, feel free to drop them into the Q&A. We have a couple coming through, but want to make sure we have a good list of those to address when we get to Q&A here in a little bit.
Great. I think we're tracking well on time. If there's no other comments or insights on here, hopefully these are really good nuggets for you, on both sides of this relationship to help drive outcomes for each other. Very important interpersonal engagement. So let's talk about the second one, right? Which is really about nurturing our relationship with sales, right? First, I think first and foremost, it really is important to note that executing effectively, for those of you aligned in a sales versus success alignment, which I think is probably 95% of the people on this call, revenue success, working with the sales team is really key to your success individually, collectively, the group, and your acceleration, right? There's a reason why we don't carry the number, we're supporting the number. And so recognizing that we need to be of service and of support to the sales organization, and understand that, not necessarily tolerate horrible behavior, but really to recognize our role in driving that outcome is first and foremost very important. Now, I'm just curious, and I don't know whether we have a poll on this, but how many, or maybe by raising of hands, although I know we've got a lot of people on here, how many have been in sales before or carried a quota of some kind before? And I'm seeing some come up in here. Oh, good. Yep, lots of raising hands. Perfect. Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so a reasonable cross section on here. There is a funny quote called "the bag is heavy," and the bag is another word for quota. For those of you who have been in the sales role, know this, right? It is hard to be a quota carrier, especially in SaaS, where most people have a monthly hockey stick expectation now. The pressure is immense. And the numbers drive a lot of the behaviors. They also drive your job security. And so in the pre-sales world, we're lucky that we usually have a broad number. Occasionally we have a quota, as I've seen, but under that pressure, and I've been in it for twice, and I did it for 2 different years, and I made my number and then I got out because I wanted to focus on mastery and I wanted to focus on pre-sales. But it really helped me build empathy for the kinds of pressures that are ongoing, the kind of diverse, dynamic, and uncertain outcomes that can occur, and the lack of security from a temporal perspective. What you did this year, if you're successful, your territory shrinks, and you may, have to do more the next year. So, some strategies that in working with the sales team is we want to trust our inherent good judgment. We have a good judge of character. We know the process. We know how to engage. But these are very dynamic situations with many, many different types of AEs. And if the time comes, we need to fall back on discipline. We need to fall back on preparation. So good prep, whether it's even 15 minutes before a demo, if you can squeeze it in, or communications, documentation, all of those things are really, really important in aligning expectations with diverse personality types in the AE world. Similarly, the sales tools. I talked about this before. Your process, your CRM tools, your forecasts, your engagement models, all of these are actually really important because not only do they get you out of the immediate tensions and execution with your reps, but they're looked at a frontline level, a director level, a broader level. These tools are in place to help you hopefully have good accuracy, have good focus on outcomes and on the activities you need to be successful. And so we want to fall back on being prepared. We want to fall back on systems, right, as a way to support our judgment. One of the other ones is to focus on customer outcomes. What do we need to do to advance opportunities? And this really allows us to handle all types of different AE types. We joke around in the course a lot around the different types of AEs. You know, there's the lone wolf, right, who typically wants to go it alone and sees very little involvement, kind of dictates where things are going. Focusing on outcomes with a lone wolf allows you to focus on critical success factors by stage. And so you can really understand how you value add into that type of environment. While we have another one, which is sort of the glutton or some of the AE who like grabs all the resources that they can. And by focusing on the outcomes, you can effectively parse out the types of shared activities that are needed to advance any deal at any time. Right, so outcomes are key, judgment and discipline are key. Those are things you fall back on to drive success in the sales cycle and ultimately for you. You need to be ready to handle lots of different diversity in sales executives, right? There's everything from lone wolves to people who consume all the resources to the AE that everybody wants to work with, or the one that kind of slides out of the work, or the kind that's really, commanding. We actually need to recognize and be adaptable as sales engineers to many different types, and recognize the strengths and gaps and how to be of value in each situation. Honesty and straightforwardness, we pitch that a lot directly with the customer, directly with the partner, this authenticity and transparency. We want to be the same way with our sales counterparts. Most AEs are not trying to be malicious. They don't have negative intent, which they might actually create impact for you that way. But if there are some things that work, some things that don't, we want to be able to discuss them, right? Here's how the partnership works. It's not, here are the circumstances that are leading to good outcomes, bad outcomes. We want to document that in case there is problems. And if you don't create the circumstances for a win-win with your AE through straight talk, you'll never get the chance to achieve it. And so being able to be straightforward in those conversations is really great. Show them the value is another really big one too. A lot of SEs are frustrated and they show them the value. They feel like they carry a lot of the deal themselves and they're like, I can be an AE. And I oftentimes caution people off the bridge many times who don't have awareness of what an AE is. Some of the best AEs were SEs though, so I don't want to discourage either. But sometimes AEs just need to be shown what success is. Again, this impact is not intent. A lot of them are inexperienced. They may not even realize that they're having a negative impact, or they are having a great impact, and we want to make sure that we're emphasizing that. So what we want to do, and the other part is like showing them the value is opportunities for you to shine, right? And so obviously repetitive bad behavior, we want to make sure that we're able to be straightforward and honest, but don't for a minute think that you don't have, this is not also an opportunity for you to shine. And another thing that we really talk about at the in the workshops is what is of service. We want to operate with authenticity and integrity, is valid with our customers, our internal customers, which are our sales team, and our customers externally. And allows us to be of service means and of value is to really think open-endedly about how do we drive success together. So I'm going to stop there. I know that it's kind of a light touch. We go much more deep in terms of how we break these down in the workshops, but I wanted to also make sure we got a chance to get some feedback from the audience on strategies of working with AEs. Are there other kinds of themes or approaches that you have taken, that help build and foster strength in the AE relationship? And we'll take a couple of chat comments as they come through.
Yeah, it looks like Jeff saying the biggest one I'd add here is an ongoing feedback loop. AE and SC relationships where feedback is open and encouraged is so huge to becoming a top performer. And I couldn't agree more, Jeff. I think that, setting expectations is also a huge one for me. That's typically the one I mentioned to SCs is, let different AEs have different styles. Same thing with SCs. So the best thing you can do is just to say, hey, this is what I expect of you. Here's what what you should expect of me, and then make sure that conversation is both ways. So I'm really glad you brought that up, Jeff. Claire said, earn credibility early so you can earn the right to give feedback and have an open relationship. That's a really, really fair point too, right? You got to be open to feedback in order to provide feedback. And so that's something that you need to establish early on in a relationship, especially the AE-SC relationship. Great point.
Good stuff. All right, two great points. Thank you to our pre-sales collective here. And so we're going to bring this to a close and open up to all kinds of questions. We're right at time, which is great. So let's talk again, wrapping here. What is a holistic practice? What is an elite practice? You are, for the majority of you, you're in this amazing role, this unbounded role. So just invite you to think about what it means at the next level. What is the next level for you? What is the next level you as a leader or as an IC? One, you're going to understand organizationally the collective outcomes that we drive across the organization to be able to articulate that, whether Steve Ballmer is in your elevator or not, right? We want to be able to understand and then use that to guide our trade-offs, to guide our decision-making, to guide our career and our impact. The second dimension that we talked about today is the individual one. And the invitation is to look beyond the pure tech, to look at true subject matter expertise, to look at cultivating your soft skills, to understanding mindset and internal skillfulness, which will hold you well in life in general. And it's really about cultivating both sides, the internal and external landscape, from a hard and soft skill perspective. And then finally, on the interpersonal side, it is nurturing key relationships, really in how you engage. We didn't get a chance to talk about some of the other key relationships, but loved how we talked about, there were some great comments on customers, prospects, partners, and other organizations. You want to be able to develop a holistic SE is going to develop their brand and value with the key stakeholders across the organization. And with that, we kind of reach this 3 ways and 3 dimensions to approach a holistic SE practice. And with that, we'll draw our lecture to a close. Just a quick note before we open it up for questions. Sealy and Sassy can be all the information on our courses, workshops, as well as Sassy Sales Management, which covers lots of different roles, including sales and SDR and channel and ops. You can find that on Sassy Sales Management or on seleadership.com. We are all virtual now. And so please talk to us if you're interested in knowing more about these workshops. And those are our email addresses for Justin and myself. So if you need more, we'd love to hear from you. And with that, we wanted to open it up for Q&A.
All right. What kind of questions do we have from the audience? We do have a couple of announcements that we have a few minutes here for Q&A, and then we'll go into a few announcements. So make sure you stick around for those. Let's see a couple questions we have here. What are your thoughts on using mentors, Stephen or Justin?
So I love that. So a mentor is somebody who, through the wisdom and their experience, can provide context for you on what the role, how to handle certain situations or what to think about in terms of your progression or situational context. And my advice is you should be seeking out mentors in a couple of fashions. One is, but probably the most important fashion is if you have a stated goal to make VP of pre-sales, it would be really useful, or you want to be a manager, for example, getting a mentorship where you can have people to share their experiences and context will really help you to drive greater wisdom, right? It's that knowledge and experience that will help you in your own decision-making moving forward. So I'm a big fan of mentors, and you can have many different kinds of them as well.
Yeah, I think mentors are critically important. I think you have to, in your career, kind of have a path for where you want to go. And if you have mentors that have already forged that path, it's much easier to kind of follow in their footsteps and heed their advice. So I really like that. Jacob asked a really interesting question, which I love here. It's for the folks that are SCs today and familiar with the role, very curious about where is this role going, right? What do we see as far as the future of the SC role? How will it evolve? What are your thoughts there?
Oh, that's a super good one. That just as the SC role brings so many multi dimensions together, right? There's also an infinite amount of opportunity to take that knowledge and to find, a specialization as you wish. I would take that, the industry is changing, the SaaS industry is changing, the technology and the evaluation cycles are changing. We're in change right now as we're virtually connected across the world, and we move into a virtual realm of engagement. I think that my personal opinion is the recognition of the multidiscipline skill set of sales engineers and what's happening literally right now will allow us to continue to sharpen our craft as a vital, if not even more important part, of a selling process than it is about, the account management. So I think that we're really, the brand of sales engineer is in that renaissance. It's growing. And as a career growth and as a vital piece of enterprise technology, it's actually starting to flex its muscles now. But as far as where it's going, beyond all of that, you have built yourself a bench of exceptional skills, right? Technology, product, sales, customer, and the sky's the limit in terms of whether you want to be an entrepreneur and start a leadership institute, whether you want to start other opportunities, you want to move into sales or any role, there is no better springboard than where you are now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's a very diverse skill set, Stephen. Thanks for that. Looks like we're running out of time, so that's all the time we have for questions. Jacob did say great response, Stephen. He appreciated it. And so if you flip the next slide, Stephen, to continue the conversation, what we've done in past webinars is we've started a thread on the discussion forum on the website. So we will start a thread with the title of this webinar, Integrating Holistic Approach Towards Becoming a Best-in-Class SC. And Stephen and Justin and I will be in there to answer whatever questions that come up throughout the next week or so. So funnel any questions that remain into that discussion forum. There was also a question about a Slack channel. We are also launching a Slack workspace since it's been requested quite a bit for the people that use Slack. I will put the Slack invites into the chat so you can go ahead and join if you'd like, and you can continue discussion either in the Slack channel or the discussion forum. There's both channels for you there. If you could look at the next slide, we have two more here. So just quickly to cover what we have in store for you all for the next couple of weeks. We have two more incredible webinars next couple of weeks. Next week, we have Zach, Jill, and Jesse who join us to share their experience on driving value-based conversations with prospects and customers. That's gonna be a really, really good one. And then the last one we have to round out May is with 3 pre-sales leaders who have built teams, pre-sales teams specifically in hyper growth at ServiceNow, at Snowflake, and at Okta. As a quick example, Steve built a team from 0 to 170 SCs over a few short years. So I'm really excited to hear more about how those folks have built those teams at that scale, at that rate. So very exciting stuff. And as always, we want to wrap with one last poll with the few minutes we have left to just hear how we did. Let's see if I can quickly launch this poll. We want to always get better and provide you with more and better content and information. So want to hear how we did and also want to know if we'll see you next week. Hopefully you got a lot of value out of today and you'll join us again next week. And then lastly, just want to wrap by saying thank you so much to Stephen and Justin. Really, really appreciate you guys sharing your experiences today and really appreciate everything you do for the community at large, including Presales Collective, but also just SEs in general. If you haven't checked out the black belt or the brown belt that Stephen and Justin offer, it's a really good program. I was a part of it, and I wasn't expecting the holistic approach, but it's something that I really, really appreciated after I went through it. So thank you so much. With that, we'll sign off, and everybody have a great week, and we'll see you next week to continue to grow and develop and get better. Thanks so much, Stephen and Justin.
Thank you, Presales Collective, Yuji, and everybody, and I wish everybody well in these times, and may your practice flourish.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye, everyone.